One of history's most well-known and despised figures is Adolf Hitler. He oversaw the Holocaust and World War II, actions that resulted in the deaths of at least 40 million people. He also served as the leader of Nazi Germany. He was the focus of several books, documentaries, and TV series throughout the ensuing decades. This list includes some well-known facts about him along with a few lesser-known ones. Schicklgruber, Heil. Adolf Hitler was on the verge of becoming Adolf Schicklgruber. Maybe Adolf Hitler. Alois, his father, was given Maria Anna Schicklgruber's last name when he was born outside of marriage. But when he was about 40 years old, Alois made the decision to take his stepfather's last name, Johann Georg Hitler, who some believe to be his biological father. Although the cause for the spelling change is uncertain, Hitler was included as the new last name on the legal documents. Before taking Clara Pölzl as his third wife, Alois Hitler had been married twice and fathered a number of kids. Only Adolf and a sister made it to adulthood out of the 6 children the couple had. Although Adolf had a strained relationship with his deceased father, who passed away in 1903, he adored his mother and was reportedly devastated by her breast cancer death in 1907. Served in World War I. Hitler was wearing the Iron Cross First-Class Medal he had been awarded for his service in World War I when he committed suicide in 1945. Hitler, who had portrayed himself as a hero throughout the conflict, valued the honor highly. Recent studies cast doubt on Hitler's recollections of his time in battle, despite the fact that he was hurt during the First Battle of the Somme, 1916. Some people think he was a runner at the relatively secure regiment headquarters and saw little to no frontline combat. His assertion that he was in danger, probably every day, would be refuted by this. Additionally, despite his claims that a mustard gas attack in 1918 temporarily blinded him, he actually had hysterical blindness, according to fictitious medical records. When Germany surrendered, he was recuperated. His citation for the Iron Cross First Class, however, does not mention a specific act of bravery, leading some researchers to speculate that it was given to honor Hitler's length of service and his general likability with officers, particularly Hugo Gutmann, a Jewish lieutenant who recommended that Hitler receive the award. Mein Kampf, bestseller banned. While imprisoned for high treason in 1924, Hitler began writing what would subsequently be regarded as one of the world's most dangerous novels. Hitler recorded his life and articulated his racist ideas in Mein Kampf, My Struggle, which was initially published in 2 volumes, 1925-1927. He claimed to have been a fanatical anti-Semite while residing in Vienna. Although it had modest success at first, Mein Kampf's popularity expanded alongside that of Hitler and the Nazis. It was considered the Bible of National Socialism in Germany, and more than 5 million copies had been sold by 1939. The work was outlawed in Germany and other nations after Hitler's death, and the German state of Bavaria, which owned the copyright, refused to provide publishing rights. However, several international publishers continued to print the book, and after the copyright expired in 2016, it entered the public domain. For the first time since 1945, a highly annotated Mein Kampf was published in Germany a few days later. It quickly became a bestseller. From the fire to the Führer. Hitler was named Chancellor of Germany in January 1933, after a series of maneuverings and intrigues. However, Hitler aspired to more control, which he obtained on February 27, 1933, when Germany's legislature building caught fire and was seriously destroyed. While Hitler's role in the Reichstag fire is unknown, a single communist was subsequently convicted of the crime. He utilized the catastrophe to cement his position. The day after the fire, he supervised the suspension of all civil freedoms, and the Nazis and their supporters won a majority in the Reichstag the following month. The Reichstag enacted the Enabling Act, which legalized Hitler's rule, on March 23, 1933. The German people then decided in August 1934, shortly after the death of President Paul von Hindenburg, to grant Hitler total control, merging the offices of Chancellor and President to form the title of Führer und Reichskanzler, leader and chancellor. An art critic. While much has been made of Hitler's unsuccessful artistic career, he was rejected by the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts and lived in poverty while trying to sell his work. His interest in painting seemed to grow after he became Führer. While Hitler loved romanticized classical Greek and Roman art, he was harshly dismissive of current styles such as Impressionism, Cubism, and Dada. Nazis began removing such degenerative art from German museums in the 1930s. Modern pieces by Paul Klee, Pablo Picasso, Wilhelm Lembrich, and Emil Nolde were later displayed as cultural documentation of the degenerate art of Bolsheviks and Jews in a 1937 multi-city exhibition. Throughout the war, Hitler ordered the systematic robbery of artworks on an unparalleled scale. Reputedly, the Ghent altarpiece was his most wanted stolen artifact. This and other works were supposed to fill the Führer Museum, a projected mega-museum in Linz, Austria. Vegan, drug user, and a teetotaler? The Nazis were known for promoting health-conscious policies in their quest to create a master Aryan race. Therefore, it may not come as a surprise that Hitler was said to have been a vegetarian, non-smoker, and teetotaler. His alleged use of opiates, however, cast doubt on his good habits. Theodor Morel, his personal physician, reportedly started injecting him with various drugs, including oxycodone, methamphetamine, morphine, and even cocaine, in 1941, according to recent research. In fact, drug use was reportedly pervasive within the Nazi Party, and meth was frequently administered to soldiers prior to combat. Hitler experienced frequent shaking toward the end of his life, which some have attributed to Parkinson's disease while others have surmised was a result of drug withdrawal from substances that were by this time difficult to obtain. Hitler seemed driven to build a personal fortune, possibly as a result of his previous poverty. Much of his wealth came from expected sources, such as stealing government funds and taking donations from corporations. He did, however, engage in more inventive projects. After becoming chancellor, he famously ordered the government to purchase copies of his Mein Kampf to distribute to newlyweds as state wedding gifts, resulting in substantial royalties for Hitler. He also refused to pay income tax. He utilized his considerable fortune, estimated at $5 billion by some, to create an extensive art collection, buy beautiful furniture, and acquire numerous residences. His estate was given to Bavaria after the war. The Nobel Prize scandal. A Swedish senator nominated Hitler for the Nobel Peace Prize in 1939. Even though he meant it as a jest, few thought it amusing. Instead, it sparked outrage, and the nomination was swiftly withdrawn. Hitler would not have desired or been able to accept the honor. In 1936, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to German journalist Karl von Ossietzky, a prominent opponent of Hitler. The gesture was interpreted as a condemnation of Nazism and an insult to Germany. As a result, Hitler prohibited all Germans from receiving the Nobel Prize and established the German National Prize for Art and Science as a substitute. The three Germans who later won Nobel Prizes during the Third Reich were forced to renounce their honors. Theories of death and conspiracy. Hitler committed suicide in his subterranean bunker in Berlin on April 30, 1945, with the war lost and Soviet forces advancing. Eva Braun, whom he had lately married, also committed suicide. Their remains were burned and then buried, as Hitler had requested. That is, at least, the popularly accepted narrative of his demise. Conspiracy theories emerged very immediately, thanks in part to the Soviets. They initially stated that they couldn't confirm Hitler's death, but later disseminated rumors that he was still alive and being shielded by the West. When pressed by US President, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin declared that he did not know what happened to Hitler. However, according to later sources, the Soviets retrieved his burned remains, which were identified using dental records. The body was surreptitiously buried before being excavated and burned, and the ashes were scattered in 1970. However, a fragment of the skull, which had a single bullet wound and was not discovered until 1946, was saved. However, such news did not dispel the worries, which only grew worse in 2009, when researchers discovered that the skull piece actually belonged to a woman.